Hello and welcome back to Chillers and Thrillers Season 5. I am your host, Em, and in this podcast, I read true stories of people's encounters with the strange and unexplained. No comedy, skepticism, or gore, only 100% true spooky tales. I hope you all had a great summer, and I'm so happy to be back with some great stories planned for this season. Not only is this season 5, but it is also the 2-year anniversary of the podcast. I'm in awe every day of how far the podcast has come and how much it has grown and continues to grow. 2 years ago, I posted the first 2 episodes of this podcast and shared it with my friends and family, hoping that it would reach people who love the paranormal and spooky things as much as I did. It looks like it definitely did, and I love hearing everyone's feedbacks, comments, and stories, and finding people who love hearing spooky stories just as much as I do. Now, unfortunately, we can't celebrate this 2-year anniversary together, maybe someday in the future, but I can read true stories of people who encountered the paranormal during a celebration or party. This first story is not party-related, but it is a listener-submitted story. Chris reached out to me earlier this summer with a chilling story of an event that occurred to him and his family, and I don't want to make you guys wait until a listener episode for this. So, our first story will be from Chris today. Thank you, Chris, for listening to the podcast and for submitting your scary story. Now, you guys have waited long enough, so let's not waste any more time. So turn down the lights, get comfortable, and listen in. The Mirror Family, submitted by Chris. My family and I, me, my wife Lisa, and our 2 daughters, Grace, age 25, and Sophie, 20, returned home to Essex, New York on Christmas Eve after a vacation in Montreal. We wrapped presents late that night and went to sleep even later. Around 6:30 in the morning, Lisa woke and went to the bathroom. She quickly returned, sounding scared. "Chris," she said. "Chris, I think there's something wrong with the heat. I think carbon monoxide is coming out. I feel dizzy. I can't breathe." I was a little groggy, but felt fine. I got up and went to the dining room with her. I didn't sense any carbon monoxide at all. I told Lisa our carbon monoxide detector was not beeping and that I felt totally fine. Our cat was walking around completely unfazed. But Lisa was adamant. She kept saying she couldn't breathe, and she's not prone to hysterics. She's grounded, logical, and rational. I don't want to ruin Christmas, but I have to call 911. Her eyes looked almost blacked out, lost. Our daughters were still asleep upstairs. "Everything's okay, I'm sure of it," I assured her. "Please, Lisa." I rubbed both of her shoulders and smiled. But still, what if I was wrong? Lisa said she couldn't wait and called 911. The operator told us to wait outside in our car and that help was on the way. We got the girls and our cat and went outside into the car. The girls were scared, and as I sat in the front seat gripping the cold steering wheel and the sirens wailed in the distance, I grew more upset and embarrassed. Because I knew nothing was actually wrong. Soon, the entire fire department, plus almost 15 volunteers and pickup trucks, arrived. It was chaos. The firemen came in, looked around, tested the furnace, checked all the ducts, and ultimately said nothing was wrong. No carbon monoxide. They showed me their devices, how they registered 0, repeatedly. I could tell they also felt embarrassed, and they tried to make us feel better by explaining away what happened. Maybe it was the wood stove, the smell of leftover cooking. I thanked them profusely, and they left faster than they arrived. Merry Christmas. But now Christmas felt strained. We were all exhausted, tired, and felt uneasy. But in spite of it, we tried to have a good Christmas morning. We opened presents, laughed, hugged each other. Crumpled paper filled the living room. That night, we had a good Christmas dinner. I poured wine around the table, and we finally seemed back to normal. After washing the dishes, we played a game we had opened as a family gift. It's like the old whisper game telephone, but you draw a picture in a spiral-bound notebook and pass it to the next person. And they try to guess what you drew by drawing their own guess on one of the following panels in the book. The book is passed around as everyone draws their own guesses. There are 8 laminated cardboard pages in each booklet, and each panel has a numbered tab, 1 to 8, like an old-fashioned cookbook. I noticed in my book that there was a duplicate number 2 panel. When you closed the book, the tabs went 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 total panels. I pointed it out and everyone looked. I held the book and flipped between both duplicate panels, saw they were exactly the same, and figured it was just a mistake made at the factory. We all commented on the strange mistake. But we played the game anyway and passed the books around and drew our pictures and laughed and tried to guess what each person drew. When my book came back to me, the extra page 2 was missing. At first, I asked if anyone noticed where it went, if it fell out. No one knew. We pushed our chairs back from the table, searched the floor and under the placemats. Nothing. We grew increasingly anxious because each page was attached firmly to the spiral binder. It couldn't have fallen out. It was impossible for it to vanish. The longer we couldn't find the extra page 2, the more freaked out all 4 of us got. It was literally gone. Poof. 2 days later, Lisa, Sophie, and I were watching a movie in the living room. At some point, Grace joined us and sat down. She asked me if I read the news. What news? I asked. She showed me her phone. The news was everywhere. On Christmas morning, another family of 4, just like us, died in their lakeside home by carbon monoxide poisoning. Around the same time, Lisa woke up and felt something was wrong. The family that died was just like us. They were in New Hampshire when it happened, next to a lake. We are all originally from New Hampshire and now live by a lake in the Adirondacks. They were all the same age as the 4 of us. The husband was a teacher, so am I. Their oldest daughter was a teacher, so is our oldest daughter. The youngest daughter was a college student, so is our youngest daughter, and so on. They were a mirror family. I feel that both events, the missing page from the booklet and the Christmas morning, are connected somehow. When I shared the story with my friend Ken, he said, "Maybe the point of the missing page 2 was to show you that your family was very similar to this other family, the duplicate page 2 and 2, but that they died and ostensibly vanished from this earth, while you and your family remained. One page 2 disappeared, yet the other remained." A Seance at my grandma's 80th birthday party. Submitted by Inspection Dry 3023. I want to start off by saying that my whole life, I've never really believed in the paranormal. I'm a STEM girly, and I've always kind of had it, I'll believe it when I see it type of attitude about this kind of thing. I'm also not really spiritual or religious, so up until now, I've always believed that when we die, we're just dead. There's no afterlife, no reincarnation, just nothing. I've just always thought that if there's no demonstrable scientific evidence of life after death, why should I believe? But all that changed after the events of this weekend. This weekend was my grandma's 80th birthday. For her birthday present, I completed a crochet afghan that her mom, my great-grandma, started making for her, but passed before it was finished. Everyone in the family had gotten an afghan except for my grandma. She was the last one and was always heartbroken that she only had half the blanket. I was so excited to give it to her because I knew how meaningful it is. The night before her birthday party, I had a really strange dream. I remember walking down a familiar street in my hometown, then turning and walking up the steps of a house that also felt familiar, but I didn't immediately recognize. I remember the front garden was full of cosmos and marigolds. In the dream, I walked through the open door into the living room, where I saw an old woman with her back facing me, sitting in a chair. She was softly singing a song I knew, but I couldn't quite place. I walked around to face her and immediately recognized my grandma's Afghan in her lap, the same one I had just finished. And the woman holding it, crocheting, was my great-grandmother. She died long before I was born, but I recognized her from pictures I've seen in my grandma's house. When I woke up, I realized that the house was the same one my grandma had grown up in. Though I had only ever driven past it, I knew what the front of it looks like, and I also know that my great-grandmother's flowers were cosmos and marigolds. Now, obviously, a lot of stuff about this dream struck me as odd, but especially the fact that I never remember my dreams. Yet this one remained vivid in my mind. I brushed it off, assuming I just felt emotional in anticipation of giving my grandma her blanket, and went downstairs to help her get our house ready for the party. The party went really well, and my grandma was overjoyed when she opened my gift. She cried happy tears and hugged me, thanking me over and over again for helping her mom be a part of the day. When the party had winded down, it was just me, my mom, and 2 of my great aunts left. My grandma told us that she wanted to do a seance. I was a bit shocked because she and her sisters were raised in a strict Catholic household. So as far as I knew, Ouija boards were off limits. But she insisted, saying that the Afghan made her realize just how much she misses her mom, and that all she wanted on this milestone birthday was to talk to her. My mom, who was extremely spiritual, practiced Wicca throughout her 20s, did happen to have a Ouija board in the house. So we got it, some black tourmaline and obsidian crystal towers for protection, per my mom, candles, and the Afghan to help us connect with her spirit. We set it all up on the kitchen table, and my mom started the seance, calling out to my great-grandmother's spirit. We sat there for a really long time, waiting for the planchette to move. But it just stayed still. After about 20 minutes of nothing, my grandma, with tears in her eyes, suggested that we give up. Right after she spoke, the planchette began moving to the no position. We asked if there was someone here with us, and it moved to yes. We asked for a name, and it spelled out Cordy. My great-grandmother's name was Cordelia, but everyone called her Cordy. My grandma and her sisters stared in disbelief. One of them even started crying a little. My grandma began to speak, telling her that she misses her with all her heart, that she thinks about her every time she sees a bird, that was their thing, and how she wishes that my brother and I could have met her. At this point, it might be useful to mention that my great-grandma was an immigrant from Mexico, and although she spoke English fluently, she always preferred Spanish. The next thing the planchette spelled out was my childhood nickname, followed by mucho gusto, nice to meet you. At this point, even I started crying. I don't believe in ghosts or Ouija boards, but that got me. After that, the messages got kind of weird, and almost seemed incoherent. First she said, hoy por ser, followed by la luna ya, todas las flores, ya la luz, en tu cama, and finally, ya viene. The Spanish speakers here are probably wondering what the hell that means, or maybe you figured out quicker than I did, because none of those messages made a ton of sense, especially not when put together. Respectively, they roughly translate to today to be, the moon already, all the flowers, already the light, in your bed, and it is coming. We got a little freaked out. My mom warned us that incoherent messages and gibberish can be a sign that we've contacted something dangerous, and insisted that we end the session immediately. So we quickly said goodbye, and that was that. We kept looking over the messages, trying to make sense of them. We put them in different orders, trying to make a coherent sentence that tried to fill in the blanks. All to no avail. We arranged them back in the order we got them in, and after staring at it for a good long time, I thought of something. I did a quick Google search and confirmed my suspicions. They weren't gibberish or random phrases. They were song lyrics. My great-grandmother was sending us the lyrics to the song Las Mañanitas, a birthday song she used to sing to my grandma every morning on her birthday. I still don't really get why the messages were so weird and disconnected, so if anyone has insight about that, I would love to hear it. My grandma was so touched and said it was her best birthday since the last one she spent with her mom. She was just so happy to have her mom sing her a birthday song one last time. As I went to bed that night, I was hit with one final realization. There was a reason I knew the song my great-grandma was singing in the dream. The song was Las Mañanitas. I don't know what all this means. I've been struggling with reconciling these events with everything I've ever believed. The rational part of my brain is still trying to come up with plausible explanations. It was just a dream. Maybe someone was pushing the planchette. Maybe they didn't even realize they were moving it. But I feel like I'm just grasping at straws, and I really have no idea what happened or why it happened. I'm hoping someone with more experience in this kind of stuff could help me understand. Ghost Party at 275 South Plymouth Avenue. Submitted by Expert Chart 7871. Back in the late 80s, I rented a basement apartment at 275 South Plymouth Avenue, Rochester, New York, in a building called the Wilmot. The building was a mansion designed in the antebellum style. When it was constructed, it was owned by one of the founders of Western Union. The family was happy there until their eldest son drowned in front of his father. At this time in Rochester, the Fox sisters, Leah, Maggie, and Kate, had all just started the spiritualist movement and began performing seances. It is rumored they regularly performed seances and had seance parties at 275 South Plymouth Avenue. Fast forward to 1989. My one-bedroom basement apartment was located at the front of the building. The parking lot was located in the rear of the building. And when I parked in the parking lot, I would enter the building, go down the stairs into the basement, and walk the length of the building, past storage units and a sauna to the back entrance of my apartment. The mansion was large, so this was about a minute walk. I walked the length of the building every night, since I always parked in that lot. One night, the lights weren't working in the basement. It was spooky, but I didn't care because I had made the walk so many times before. As I walked through the dark basement, I could hear laughter. I thought it was some people using the sauna, but as I got closer to the back door of my apartment, the sound of laughter got louder. It sounded like a party. I could hear glasses clinking and the sound of silverware and china. When I got to the back door of my apartment, it sounded like the party was right inside my apartment. I thought I had left my TV on, so I put my key in the lock and turned the knob. And the noise just stopped. I entered the storage area to my apartment and smelled roses and lilies. When I walked into my apartment, everything was quiet. I hadn't left the TV or the radio on, and it was dead, silent. I had interrupted a ghost party. Hippie Party Ghost in the Mountains, submitted by Anonymous. I just got back from a seasonal job at a ski resort in Alta, Utah, just outside Salt Lake City. It was a live-in, work-in sort of situation, so I was living with 2 roommates in a kind of co-ed dorm building, and the resort was right across the parking lot. All me and my coworkers did throughout the season was work, snowboard and ski, and party. We took any and every opportunities to go or throw parties. It was a pretty crazy lifestyle. Towards the end of the season, my friends and I got invited to a house party at a popular guy's mansion just down one of the mountain bypasses. To give some imagery, this house was kind of tucked in the woods just off the road out of sight. It was a pretty treacherous little hike down to the front door, though, considering that the mountain got about 600 inches of snow that season. When we got to the house that night at around 11, it was packed, full of people. If I were to guess, there were about 150 to 200 people there in total that night. It was one of the most fun and crazy experiences I have ever had. I'm personally a night owl and usually stay up around 4 a.m. every night. It was about 2 a.m. when I looked around and noticed that all my friends from my particular resort had already left. I thought, no big deal, the walk isn't very long, I'll be fine. A few moments later, I looked down and noticed my phone died. I took this as an excuse to leave the party and start walking back towards the dorm. I walked out into the cold night and stood by the door for a few seconds. As soon as I closed the door, all I could hear was silence. Dead silence. No winds, no voices, no music, nothing. I got a weird feeling as I started up the frozen steps and into the darkness of the woods, but I brushed it off as I can get pretty weary of the dark. There was absolutely no one around as I started on the narrow path towards the road, but a few seconds later, I was startled to see someone just ahead of me, about 15 to 20 feet. It was like he came from nowhere. The trail to the road is very narrow, and snow on either side is very, very deep. It's impossible to walk through. It wasn't likely that this guy came from that kind of snow, considering if you tried to go through it, you would probably sink to at least your shoulders. Now, what first started to scare me about this guy was that he was wearing no jacket. It was around 15 degrees that night. He was also wearing khaki shorts, sandals, and a rainbow tie-dye t-shirt. He had long, curly hair and his hands in his pockets, with his head facing the ground. He almost looked sad. Now, people have told me that maybe he just forgot his jacket, or he was too messed up to care. Fair enough. But the second thing that caught my attention was that he was making absolutely no noise as he walked. He was completely silent. This is weird because I was so close behind him that I definitely should have heard the snow crunching beneath him. And I only noticed this when I stopped to check my pockets for my cigarettes. So I kept behind him, keeping the same cautious distance the entire time. The path out of the woods opened up to the bypass road, with huge snowbanks on either side. I was maybe 4 seconds behind him when I came into the clearing and noticed he was gone. I stopped, looked all around me, and saw nothing but the dark and deserted road. The path I had just come from was the only path for about 500 feet on either side. He simply disappeared in 4 seconds. The reason this freaked me out so much is that there was no possible way he could have vanished so quickly when there was simply nowhere to go but along the road. I still give shivers to this day thinking about it. He gave off this incredibly sad aura that I felt immediately after seeing him. I never saw anyone like him in the last days I was there, and I asked around a lot. There are many people who have died on this mountain, from skiing accidents to murder. I wonder if I got a glimpse of one of those sad souls that night. Whoever he was, alive or not, I hope he finds peace someday. The Housewarming Party, submitted by Anonymous. I bought my first home 9 months ago, and it's a huge accomplishment for me. On the evening after I closed on the house, I had a little champagne toast in the new place. I invited my boyfriend, my sister, who we'll call J, and her 4-year-old daughter, who we'll call M, my best friend, Aunt T, and my son and brother, who live with me. It only lasted an hour or two, and I gave everyone a tour. My best friend and Jay wanted to stop in every room and talk about my plans for it. I ordered pizza, we had a champagne toast. My niece M was having a great time running through the house. She and my sister have a 700 square foot apartment, so my place seemed huge to her. Em loved my room. I have a closet in the room with the built-in pedestal kind of thing, so we sat her on it and joked that it could be her room. All in all, it was a good time. Everyone headed out around the same time, starting with Jay and Em, since it was a school night. Not even 5 minutes after Jay and Em left, my sister calls me, still driving. My sister sounded shaken, and I worried for a second her car broke down or she got into an accident. But no, Jay said she asked Em if she had a good time and if she liked her aunt's new place. Em said, yeah, I had fun with Aunt T, and the little girl. My sister said she actually pumped the brakes on the car because her instinct was to stop the car in its tracks. There were no other children in the house that night, just Em. Jay is trying not to scare Em, but she wants to know more, so she gently asks, oh, what little girl? Em says, the one that was standing behind Auntie all night. My sister presses her a little bit more and asks Em what the little girl looks like. Em says she has long black hair and she had on a pretty blue dress. My sister asks if the little girl spoke to her, and Em says no. She was shy, but she had fun chasing each other through the house, and the little girl was sitting in her house, aka my closet, when we opened the door. Apparently, I have a little ghost girl in my house, and she likes my closet and me. My house was built in the 1900s, so it has a long history, but I haven't looked into the history yet. I've not seen or heard a thing in this house since I moved in, but I definitely didn't sleep well for the first few nights. Life of the Party, submitted by user Larry Williams. My parents have lived in a rather large old farmhouse in Hamilton, Virginia for many years. The first section of the house was built in the 1960s and is where the modern kitchen and living area is. The second part of the house is the original farmhouse that was built around 1800. This section of the house was a simple affair, with the first floor being one big kitchen and living area with a set of stairs on the side. With the first floor being one big kitchen and living area with a set of stairs on the side that led up to the sleeping areas. Finally, the third section is a 3-story brick structure that was built onto the house in 1841. This section added a living room, sitting room, and bedrooms on the floor above. Today, the original kitchen and living area is used as a sort of formal dining room, while the newer living area is less formal and are where most meals are shared. But when the clan gathers for Christmas or Thanksgiving, the formal dining room is spread with plates and silverware on tablecloths. Cakes and pies lay out on a sideboard, candles are lit in sconces on the walls and the table, and a fire burns in the fireplace. These are always big affairs, lasting hours, with the family overflowing into the other rooms. And it is just such these times that the ghost of the house seems to enjoy. On more than one occasion, I've helped the family clean off the table after the feast. It takes some time because there are so many plates, glasses, and serving dishes. But even through the work of cleaning up, the good cheer continues. When my sons were young, the final step in finishing off the dining room was to blow out all the candles. This was a big deal for the kids who got to be lifted up high enough to blow out each candle. My youngest son, Josh, got the honor of blowing out the candles, and after we did so, we took the last couple of plates into the kitchen to be cleaned up. When we came back to the dining room for one last check, we stopped. Every one of the candles was burning, and the fire, which had been dying down, was again burning brightly. I knew we had blown out every one of those candles. I didn't do anything so foolish as to ask my son. He knew we had as well, and looked just as puzzled. I looked in the library where some of the older kids were playing with an Xbox. There's no way they would have had the time or interrupted their game for such a prank. And even if they had, they'd have been watching me for a reaction. I had been gone less than a minute, and yet now all the candles were burning brightly. It was as if someone or something did not want the evening to end. This happened one other time, so far a couple of years later. This time, my cousin and his family had been able to join us, so the rooms were again packed to overflowing. And again, all the candles had been blown out, and the final plate was taken from the table. My son and I returned to all of the candles again, relit. This time, we smiled, looked at each other knowingly, and Josh said, "She's not ready for the party to end." For some reason, we both think of the entity as being a female. We've never discussed it, and yet we're both convinced. She touches us frequently. You can walk through the room, and at some point, you will be enveloped in what can only be called a caress or a hug. It isn't just cool spots or hair standing up on your neck. There is an almost physical feel to the body. There's motion to it. You are caressed, a hand moves down your shoulder or arm, a chest presses into your chest or gently through you. There's movement and a difference in the density of the entity, and a feeling of happiness, like a hug of welcome. I don't know any other way to describe it. The experience is always stronger when there's a big family gathering, and the entity is not always in the same place. Sometimes you need to walk around a little bit until you come to it. And when you do, you will know you have found her, and that she's happy to see you. And she is almost always there. More when there are or have been other people in the house, less at other times. We have no idea who or what this entity might be, but she seems confined to only the original area of the house, so I can only assume that this was her time, and that she has been there and will remain for many, many years. And that's all for this episode. Thank you again for joining and for listening. I would love to hear your thoughts, theories, or just a general comment saying hello. So make sure to leave me a comment if you're listening on Spotify or YouTube. And if you're listening on any other podcast platform, just send me a quick email to say hi. I'd also appreciate it if you could leave me a rating or review, and make sure to share with your paranormally inclined friends and family. As I mentioned before, I have some awesome episodes lined up for this season and some great spooky stories. But until then, I hope all you ghouls and ghosts stay safe, and I'll see you soon.